talking about the reasons why we bounce off websites. Yeah. And by we, I'm talking about someone who's visiting a website or your target audience. Yeah. The first one, and the very critical one, is that your website did not meet my expectations. And what do I mean by this? By the time I am searching on Google, for example, I already have the intention to do something or to know more about something. So if your website shows up on the results and I click on it, I already have this level of expectation in my mind. And when the page loads and you don't meet that expectation, there is no reason why I should stay. So I'll definitely bounce. Another reason why you could not be meeting my expectations is, let's say I saw an ad that you're running, and on the ad you shown me that you're selling dresses, and I am interested in dresses and dresses only. I click on that ad and it leads me to your website, and guess what? The page opens up and it's talking about books and bags. That is not what I was looking for, which means it's not relevant to me at that particular moment. So a large number of people who are thinking like me will definitely bounce. The second reason why we bounce off websites is the design of the website is not appealing. Guys, first impressions matter, and your website it's just like the storefront. If I come to your shop and it looks disorganized, it's not appealing, it doesn't even look like I want to stay there, why would I? So same logic applies to your website. If your website loads and my first impression is what is going on here, I am definitely not going to stay. So yeah, the design of your website counts. And it's not just the design, because the third factor is actually user experience. You might have heard this terminology being talked about as UX. What is my experience when I land on the website? Because your website could be looking amazing. Like I actually love how it looks, but when I'm interacting with your website, when I'm navigating through different pages, if it's too complicated, then I don't get a good experience. It's just like I said, when I come to your shop, to your storefront, if your customer service people are not helpful, or maybe the way you've stocked your products on the shelves is just difficult, I can't reach what I'm looking for, or maybe the products you put there and the price below, the price sticker are not matching, because that happens, by the way. It's the same thing that I am talking about on a website. If I land on your website and this is the expectation, your design is looking good, but then when I actually try and interact with your website and I get a terrible experience, I am not going to last more than, let's say, even 5 seconds. I'll give an example of websites that have a terrible experience, or rather have a tendency to have a terrible experience. The first one is airlines. There are cases where I've filled in my details, I want to book a ticket, and then the page loads and takes me back to square one. Another good example of websites that have terrible user experience, government websites. I will not even explore that further. I'm sure if you guys have visited a government website, you'll know what I mean. There are a few who are improving, but the experience is not really 100%. Then number 4 is accidental clicks. There's a lot of clickbait information out there. Everyone these days is running ads, and sometimes you're scrolling through an article and then this ad pops up out of nowhere and you panic and you click on it, and the next thing you know, it's loaded something else and you're like, you close it and you go back to your article. That's considered a bounce. But how did that bounce happen? It was an accidental click. Another thing is, we are naturally a very impatient generation. I mean, the internet has made us very impatient. So if I want to visit your website and it takes more than 3 seconds to load the first page, I'm out of there. We are very impatient, which means the speed of how your website pages load is another factor that will make us either stay or bounce. Then there's too many pop-ups and too many ads. There are several websites that make money when they open up different spaces for advertisers to put in their ads. But then some of you guys overdo it, man. I visit your website, I have an intention, and then halfway into my interaction with your site, like 7 ads pop out from everywhere, the top, the side, the bottom. Sometimes I cannot even read the information because that ad just keeps popping up. That is not a good experience, and I will bounce out of there very quickly. Then there is actually the last reason is actually a positive one. I could be bouncing off your website because I already got what I was looking for. So bounce rate is not necessarily always a negative thing. It really depends on what your website's goal is, or rather why your website exists. If you have a website where all I needed to know is how to do ABCD and I should grasp it in like 5 seconds and I leave after those 5 seconds, then your high bounce rate is not necessarily a bad thing. So when we think about bounce rate, we tend to only think about the negatives, but sometimes it could be a positive thing. For example, earlier I talked about how landing pages, especially for campaigns, have the second highest bounce rate. Now, this is not necessarily a bad thing because I already have been exposed to different ads in that campaign. Maybe I already understand it a bit better, and I only came to that landing page to either give my details or participate in a challenge or submit something. So I won't last that long on that page because the other aspects of the campaign, maybe on social, on radio, on TV, have already done the convincing. So sometimes a bounce rate is not necessarily a bad